The sky was burning when the first ships arrived. Great shadows fell across the land as alien vessels pierced through the clouds like daggers. Their engines roared, shaking the earth and filling every living soul with fear. No one had seen such power before, and no one was ready for what came next. The invaders did not come to speak. They came to conquer. Their soldiers poured out, clad in dark armor, their weapons cutting through defenses with ease. Cities fell in hours. Human armies tried to resist, but every counterattack ended in fire and screams. People whispered one word when they saw the creatures unleashed from cages within the alien ships. They called them predators. These predators were not machines. They were living beasts, taller than any man, with claws that tore through steel and teeth that split armor apart. Their roar could freeze blood, and their eyes glowed with hunger. Entire units of soldiers vanished in moments whenever one of these beasts entered the battlefield. Nothing seemed able to stop them. Among the chaos, one man stood watching the fire rain from the sky. His name was not famous. He was no general, no hero of old wars. Just a soldier with dirt on his face and a rifle in his hands. Yet as the predator moved across the ruins, tearing through men and machines, something inside him refused to run. His heart pounded, but his legs held firm. While others fled, he stepped forward. On a ridge not far away, an alien woman watched, as well. She belonged to the very empire that had unleashed these monsters, but she was not among the conquerors by choice. She had been raised in fear of the predator, told that nothing in the galaxy could kill one. Even her people only controlled them with chains and pain. She had always believed that to see a predator fight was to witness death itself. Now she watched as the human stood before it. The predator turned, its huge form crushing debris underfoot. It smelled the soldier, and its head tilted low, jaws dripping with thick saliva. It wanted him. It always wanted the strong ones first. The ground shook as it charged. The human lifted his rifle, knowing it would not be enough, yet he fired anyway. Bullets ripped into the beast's hide, sparks flying where armor plates of bone turned the shots aside. Still, he did not stop. The beast leapt, and he rolled aside, the claws tearing through the ground where he had stood a heartbeat before. Dust filled the air. His weapon clattered empty, but he did not surrender. He pulled the blade from his belt, the same short steel that many called useless in this war. Against a beast of such size, it was madness. Yet he gripped it tight, eyes never leaving the monster. The alien woman gasped, clutching the edge of the ridge. No one dared face a predator like this. She had seen soldiers from many worlds shredded like paper. But this human moved with something different. Not just fear, not just bravery. It was something deeper, something she could not name, and it made her unable to look away. The predator lunged again, faster this time. The soldier dove under its claws, rolling through rubble, and drove his blade into the soft part of its leg. The beast roared in fury, blood spraying across the stones. For the first time it felt pain from prey. For the first time it stumbled back. The human stood, chest heaving, dirt and blood mixing on his face. Around him the war raged, but in that circle of ruin it was only him and the predator. He did not know if he would survive. He did not know if anyone would even remember his name, but as the beast's glowing eyes fixed on him with rage, he tightened his grip on the blade and whispered only one word. Come. The predator circled him, claws dragging lines across the broken ground. Its growl rumbled like thunder, shaking the dust from shattered walls. The human stood ready, his small blade in hand, eyes sharp and unblinking. He was breathing fast, but there was no retreat in him. Around them, the sounds of war faded, as if even the battle itself held its breath to see what would happen next. The alien woman leaned forward from her hidden ridge. She had watched many fights before, but never like this. Soldiers always ran, screamed, or died quickly. But the human stayed. His size was nothing compared to the beast. His weapon was nothing compared to its claws. Yet she felt a strange tension in her chest as she watched. It was as if the outcome was no longer certain. The predator lunged, its jaws snapping shut where the human's head had been. He ducked, low, rolling past its massive leg and stabbed upward. The blade scraped bone, leaving only a shallow cut, but the roar that followed shook the air. The beast spun, tail lashing, and struck him across the chest. He crashed into rubble, coughing blood, but still he rose. Pain made his vision blur, but his grip on the blade did not loosen. The alien woman whispered under her breath. Words not. Even she understood. She had seen generals fall in one strike. She had seen armored tanks ripped open like paper. Yet this human, alone and broken, still stood. She wondered if he was mad, or if he carried some secret strength that no other being possessed. Her people had always believed humans weak, too fragile to survive wars beyond their world. Now she was not so sure. The predator crouched low, its glowing eyes fixed on the soldier. Blood dripped from its wounded leg, dark and steaming. The human's chest rose and fell with ragged breaths. For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackle of fires in the ruins. Then, without warning, both moved at once. The beast struck downward, claws tearing through the air. The human rolled to the side, thrusting his blade deep into the joint of its arm. The scream that followed was deafening. The alien woman covered her ears but did not close her eyes. She could not. The sight pulled at her like gravity. The predator's blood spilled onto the ground, thick and black, hissing as it burned through stone. The human staggered, barely holding himself upright. His face was pale, but his eyes still burned with defiance. She had never seen eyes like his before. They did not show fear, only fire. The predator reared up, slamming its other claw down, crushing the ground where the soldier stood. He leapt back, but not far enough. A sharp edge cut across his side, tearing flesh. He cried out, but did not fall. With his other hand, he pulled a shard of broken metal from the rubble and hurled it at the beast's face. The shard struck its eye, sinking deep. The roar that came shook the ruins like an earthquake. The alien woman felt her body tremble. She should have looked away. She should have turned and run before her own people noticed she was watching. But she could not move. Her heart pounded as if she herself were in the fight. She realized something terrifying. She was hoping that the human would not fall, hoping that he would prove, against all laws of nature, that the predator could be stopped. The beast writhed, thrashing its claws against the ground, blind with pain. The soldier used the moment, forcing himself forward, stumbling with every step. He drove his blade again, this time into the beast's throat, where its armor of bone was thinner. The predator jerked back, blood spraying in thick waves. The human was thrown down, rolling across the ground, but the wound was real. The predator staggered, choking. The alien woman pressed a hand to her lips. Her eyes widened as the truth settled on her. This was not a myth. This was not a dream. A predator was bleeding because of human hands. Something that had never happened, in her memory, or in the memory of her people. The beast did not fall yet, but its roar was no longer filled with certainty. For the first time, the predator sounded afraid. The soldier crawled to his knees, blood soaking his uniform. His body shook from exhaustion, but he lifted the blade once more. He knew he could die in the next moment, but that no longer mattered. All that mattered was the beast before him, the thing that had slaughtered so many. He had hurt it. He had made it bleed, and he swore to himself that he would not stop until it was dead. The predator shook its massive head, dark blood spilling across the cracked stones. Its wounded eye burned red, and its throat gurgled with every growl. Rage twisted its movements now. It was no longer hunting for food. It was no longer fighting for dominance. It wanted revenge against the small creature that dared to wound it. The human soldier wiped blood from his face, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His side burned where the claw had torn through him, but pain no longer held his mind. All he could see was the towering beast before him. His blade dripped with its blood, and in that sight he found strength. For the first time, he believed the impossible might not be impossible after all. The alien woman on the ridge clutched her chest, unable to calm her racing heart. She had been raised on tales of the predator's glory, stories meant to make her people obey their empire without question. But now those stories shattered in her mind. The predator was powerful, yes, but it was bleeding. It was not untouchable, and the one who had made it bleed was not one of her kind. not one of the mighty rulers of her empire, but a single human. The predator lunged again, faster than before, driven by rage. Its claws swept across the air like blades, tearing apart walls as it advanced. The human barely dodged, rolling through dust and debris. Each movement sent pain through his body, but he pushed forward, stabbing again at the beast's legs. His blade sank shallow, but every cut added up. Every cut was proof that even gods of war could be wounded. The alien woman whispered to herself. Though no one could hear, she whispered for him to move faster, to keep fighting, to survive. She could not understand why she cared. He was not of her world, not of her people, yet every strike he made against the predator filled her with hope. She had never cheered for anyone in her life, yet now her lips shaped silent prayers for him. The predator roared, a sound that shook the ground itself. With a furious swipe, it smashed a stone wall into dust, sending the human tumbling back. He struck the ground hard, gasping for air. His body screamed at him to give up, but he forced himself up again. He tightened his grip on the blade, its steel slick with blood, and spat red onto the dirt. His voice came out as a growl, almost as wild as the beast's own. The alien woman's eyes filled with shock as she watched. She had seen warriors break before the predator. She had seen commanders cry as their armies burned. But this human did not break. His body bent, his bones cracked, but his will stood taller than mountains. She thought for the first time that humans were not weak. They were terrifying in a way her people had never understood. The predator came again, this time slamming down with both claws at once. The ground split apart, fire and dust bursting into the air. The human rolled aside just in time, leaping onto the beast's injured arm. With a desperate cry, he drove the blade deeper into the joint. The predator screamed, its roar echoing across the battlefield. It thrashed wildly, smashing itself against the ruins, trying to shake him free. The alien woman's breath caught in her throat as she saw him cling to the monster. His body was small, but his will wrapped around the predator like chains. She had never seen anything so reckless, so foolish, and yet so brilliant. Her people used cages, shock collars, and chains to control the beast. The human used only his hands, his courage, and his unbroken spirit. And in that moment, she believed he could win. The predator slammed against a broken tower, finally throwing him loose. The soldier crashed into rubble, the air forced from his lungs. Dust and fire clouded the sky around him. He coughed, pulling himself up on shaky legs. His whole body trembled, but his eyes burned bright. The predator limped now, blood pouring from its wounds, but it was far from finished. Its rage had only grown, and its hunger for the soldier's life burned hotter than ever. The alien woman felt tears sting her eyes. She did not know why, but she could not stop them. Perhaps it was because she saw something no one else had ever seen, a human standing against the deadliest predator, refusing to bow even as death closed in. Perhaps it was because she knew that if he fell, the small hope she had found would die with him. Or perhaps it was because for the first time she believed in something greater than fear. The predator lowered its head, claws scraping stone, preparing for one final charge. The human raised his blade, steady despite the blood dripping down his arm. They stood locked in silence, two enemies from different worlds, each knowing only one would walk away. Around them, the war raged on, but here, in this shattered place, it came down to this single fight. The predator's charge shook the ground like an earthquake. Its claws carved furrows through stone as it thundered forward. The human soldier gritted his teeth, raising his blade. His body ached, his side burned, and his lungs begged for air. He knew one mistake would mean death, yet he did not move back. He planted his feet and waited for the monster's strike. The alien woman felt her nails dig into her palms as she watched. Her whole life she had been told that the predator could never be stopped. But here, in front of her eyes, a human dared to stand still against its rage. She wanted to look away, to hide her face from the sight of blood, but something in her heart refused. She had to see what he would do next. The predator leapt, claws swinging down. The soldier twisted at the last moment, the claws grazing his shoulder instead of splitting him in two. Pain shot through his arm, but he forced his blade upward, striking into the beast's chest. The steel cut through flesh but lodged halfway. the sheer size of the predator's body holding it back. The soldier cried out, twisting the blade with all his strength. The predator roared in fury, but the wound was shallow. It was not enough. The alien woman gasped. For a moment, hope had soared inside her. But when she saw how little the blade had done, dread returned. The predator's strength seemed endless, while the human's body looked ready to collapse. She whispered words she never thought she would say. She begged under her breath for him not to fall. The predator slammed its tail into him, hurling him across the battlefield. He struck a wall, stone breaking under the force, and crumpled to the ground. Dust and blood covered his face as he struggled to rise. His vision swam, his breath ragged. His hands trembled as he tried to lift the blade again. For a moment, he could not. For a moment, he was just a broken man in the dirt. The alien woman pressed her hand against her mouth. Her chest tightened as she watched him fail to stand. She thought this was the end. The predator growled, limping closer, its glowing eyes locked on him. It had bled, but it was far from beaten. She realized she did not want to see him die. The thought struck her like lightning. Why should she care? Why should a human matter? And yet her heart screamed that he did. The soldier forced himself onto his knees. He spat blood, gripping the blade with shaking hands. He looked at the beast towering above him, ready to strike. He felt his strength slipping away, but he thought of every face he had seen fall to these monsters. He thought of the families who would never return home. And he thought of the alien woman on the ridge, though he did not know why. Something told him he was not truly alone. The predator raised its claw, preparing the final blow. Its shadow fell across him, dark and heavy. The human's grip tightened on his blade. He whispered to himself, a promise only he could hear. He swore he would not die on his knees. If he had to fall, it would be standing, looking the beast in the eye. With a growl, he rose, his body screaming with pain, and faced it once more. The alien woman's eyes widened. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to look away. She could see that he was barely alive. She could see that every movement hurt him. Yet he stood again, defying the predator's power. She felt her throat tighten as a strange truth filled her. The predator was not the strongest being on this battlefield. The human was. The predator slammed its claw down, and the human barely dodged, the ground splitting where he had stood. He rolled, stabbing upward, but his blade slipped from his weakening grip. It clattered across the stones, out of reach. The soldier gasped, scrambling toward it, but the beast's shadow fell over him again. This time he had no weapon in his hand. This time he was truly unarmed. The alien woman rose to her feet on the ridge. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. She wanted to scream, to warn him, to run down and help him, though she knew it would mean her death. For the first time in her life, she felt powerless, not because of fear of the predator, but because of the fire inside her that demanded she act. Her lips trembled as she whispered, begging him to stand, begging him not to let go. The soldier reached out, his fingers brushing the blade, but the predator's claw smashed down before he could grasp it. Dust exploded, covering the battlefield, in smoke. The alien woman cried out, fear crushing her chest. She could not see him. She could not see if he lived or if the predator had crushed him beneath its weight. In that silence, in that storm of dust and blood, the world seemed to hold its breath. The dust slowly cleared and the predator lifted its claw. Its massive hand was stained red, its breath steaming in the air. The alien woman covered her mouth, her eyes wide with terror. She feared it was over. She feared the human was gone, crushed into the earth like all the others before him. But then the rubble shifted and a figure rose from the broken ground. The soldier stood, blood dripping from his face, his blade once more in his hand. The predator's roar shook the ruins, angry that its kill had failed. It lunged forward again, claws slicing through the smoke. The human staggered, but instead of stepping back, he moved forward. He ducked under the beast's strike, his blade flashing upward. Steel sank into the predator's throat where the armor was weak. A spray of dark blood filled the air, and for the first time, the predator stumbled back in shock. The alien woman gasped aloud, Her hands trembled as she clutched the stones before her. She could not believe what she had seen. The predator, the monster her people had worshipped and feared for generations, had been pierced in its most vital place. No warrior in history had ever done such a thing. And it was not one of her kind who had achieved it. It was the human, broken and bleeding, but still unyielding. The predator roared again, but this roar was different. It was not the cry of a victor. It was the cry of a wounded beast. The human pressed his attack, driving forward despite his injuries. He slashed again at its limbs, carving shallow wounds that burned with each strike. The predator's movements grew wilder, less controlled. It was fighting with rage, not with certainty. For the first time, the predator knew fear. The alien woman's heart raced. Her eyes burned with tears she did not understand. Every part of her body told her to hide, to stay silent, to wait for the predator to finish the battle. But her heart pushed her forward. She whispered words of encouragement as if the human could somehow hear her across the distance. She wanted him to win. She needed him to win, because if he fell, all hope would fall with him. The human ducked another strike, rolling across the shattered ground. His body screamed with pain, but his mind burned like fire. He saw the predator bleeding from its throat, limping from its wounded leg, clawing wildly as if it no longer knew how to fight. He knew he had found the weakness. He knew he had made it possible. He could kill it. The thought drove him forward, filling him with strength beyond his broken flesh. The predator lashed out with its tail, smashing walls into rubble, but the human was already moving. He leapt onto its back, clinging to the thick ridges of bone. His blade flashed as he stabbed again and again into the back of its neck. The predator thrashed, smashing itself against stone, tearing at the ground to throw him free. But he held on. His roar of defiance echoed through the battlefield, louder than the beast's own cry. The alien woman's chest tightened as she watched. Her people used whips, chains, and machines to bend the predator's will. But the human used nothing, except his bare hands and his refusal to yield. She realized in that moment that humans were not just survivors. They were something more. They were defiance given flesh. They were the storm that refused to bow to fear. And she could not stop herself from whispering the truth. She whispered that he would win. The predator smashed itself against a broken tower, finally dislodging him. The soldier fell crashing to the ground. He coughed blood, but his blade was still in his hand. He staggered to his feet, and though his body was torn, his eyes burned with a fire no wound could dim. The predator limped, blood pouring from a dozen wounds, but it still lived. It lowered its head, preparing one last desperate charge. This would be the final clash. The alien woman rose to her feet on the ridge. She could feel her whole body trembling, her knees weak beneath her. She had never spoken to a human before, never cared for one. But now she wanted to scream his name, though she did not even know it. She wanted the galaxy to see what she was seeing, to know that history was changing. Before their eyes, a human had made the predator bleed. A human was about to end it. The predator roared, sprinting forward with all its remaining strength. The ground split under its weight, and the fires of war lit its massive frame. The human gripped his blade with both hands, steady despite his wounds. He did not run. He did not hide. He charged to meet the beast head-on. Their clash echoed like thunder, shaking the ruins as steel struck flesh and claw met bone. The world seemed to stop in that single moment of fury. The battlefield shook as man and beast collided. The predator's claws slashed through the air, its jaws snapping with hunger and fury. The human soldier met it with his blade, striking with every ounce of strength he had left. Sparks flew where steel met bone. Blood sprayed where his blade cut deep. The world seemed to vanish, leaving only their fight, a single struggle that would decide more than just life or death. The alien woman's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes never blinked as she watched. The predator was still terrible, still mighty, but its movements carried desperation now. Its roars echoed with pain, its steps faltered with wounds. The human's body was broken, his uniform torn, his face pale with blood loss, but his spirit burned brighter than the fires around them. She realized the predator was no longer hunting him. It was fighting to survive. The predator swung with all its strength, claws tearing across the ground. The soldier dove aside, rolling through rubble, then rose with blade in hand. He struck the beast's chest, driving steel into its wounds again and again. Dark blood poured, hissing where it struck the stones. The predator staggered back, its massive body shaking, but it did not fall. It roared and lunged once more, its jaws wide to tear him apart. The human did not retreat. He moved forward, leaping into its charge, thrusting his blade upward into the roof of its mouth. The steel pierced through flesh and bone, driving deep into its skull. The predator froze, its roar cut short. Its glowing eyes flickered, then dimmed. The ground trembled as its massive body collapsed, crashing into the ruins with a final shudder. The deadliest predator had fallen by human hands. The alien woman fell to her knees on the ridge, tears spilling down her face. Her chest heaved as she tried to breathe. She could not believe it, yet the truth lay before her in the broken body of the beast. The predator that had haunted her people for centuries, the predator that no warrior had ever defeated, was dead, and the one who had killed it was not of her empire, not of her kind, but a single human soldier. The soldier pulled his blade free, staggering back as the beast's body collapsed fully into the dirt. His arms shook, his chest burned, his legs nearly gave way beneath him, but he stayed standing, looking at the monster that had nearly ended him. His heart pounded, not with fear now, but with victory. He whispered to himself, voice hoarse but steady, that the predator was gone. It was over. The alien woman rose slowly, her legs trembling. She could not tear her eyes from him. In her heart, something shifted forever. She had grown up believing fear was eternal, that nothing could break the power of the predator, yet she had seen it die. She had seen a human do what no empire could. She felt a weight lift from her soul, replaced by something new. It was hope. It was fire. It was belief in a future she had never dared to imagine. The soldier dropped to one knee, exhausted. The battle around them still raged, but he felt none of it. His body screamed for rest, his wounds bleeding freely, but his spirit refused to bow. He had killed the predator. He had proved that even the strongest monsters could fall. He closed his eyes, feeling the wind on his face, and for the first time since the war began, he felt peace. The alien woman stepped forward, no longer hiding on the ridge. She walked toward him, her steps unsure at first, but then stronger with each pace. She knew her people would call her a traitor for this. She knew the Empire would never forgive her for turning her back. But she did not care. She had seen the truth. The future would not belong to fear. It would belong to those who dared to fight it. And she knew that humans were meant to lead that fight. The soldier looked up as she approached, his eyes tired but still fierce. He did not know who she was or why she came. But in her eyes, he saw something familiar. Not fear, not hatred, but respect. She stopped before him, her voice trembling as she spoke words she never thought she would say. She told him he had changed everything. He had changed her, her people, and perhaps even the galaxy itself. The soldier gave a faint smile, though blood still dripped from his lips. He said nothing, for no words were needed. His blade still glistened with the predator's blood, proof enough of what he had done. Around them, fire and war still raged, but in that moment, in that place, something far greater had begun. A legend was born, a story that would spread through every world. The tale of the day the deadliest predator fell to human hands. The alien woman lifted her gaze to the burning sky, her heart steady for the first time in her life. She whispered that the galaxy would never be the same. For in the ruins, in the ashes of war, she had seen the truth. She had seen what humanity truly was, and she knew the future belonged not to fear, not to beasts, not to empires, but to the fire of human defiance that no predator could ever kill.